Indian Standard Time on Awaaz South Asia. I'm Nirupama Subramanian. On December 21st, that is yesterday in the afternoon, 2 army vehicles were ambushed while they were traveling between Poonch and Rajouri districts in Jammu. Both are border districts. There were 9 soldiers in the 2 vehicles. And what we are hearing is that there were 7 casualties. The army has confirmed that 4 of these soldiers were killed. Further news is awaited on the other casualties. A group calling itself the People's Anti-Fascist Force has taken responsibility for this attack. It is a proxy of the Jaish-e-Mohammed, and this is the 5th such incident in this area. At least 20 soldiers have been killed over this year, starting from April this year. And 2 of them are captain rank, 2 of them were captain rank officers. At least 3, I think, were para officers. The area has emerged as a terror hotspot since October 2021, at least. To understand why these incidents keep happening with such regularity, my guest today is Lieutenant General Deependra Singh Hooda, who was the General Officer Commander-in-Chief of the Indian Army's Northern Command. And before that, he was also the commander of the 16 Corps, Jammu-based 16 Corps. General Hooda, welcome to the show. Let me begin by asking why has this area, which was so quiet compared to the valley, at least until 2020, why has this area become such a death trap for the army? Why are so many soldiers dying suddenly in this area?
Nirupama, firstly, thank you for calling me on the show, and I think you raised some important, questions. I think there is no single reason why. I think it's a combination of many factors that we are seeing, as you said, since 2020, an increase in militancy and terrorism in the Jammu region. So let's just go back. So after the incursions happened in eastern Ladakh, the Chinese incursion, in order to beef up the defenses in that area, some troops from here were pulled out and sent to eastern Ladakh. Therefore, the density of troops in this area reduced. There was also a lot of pressure that was happening in the Kashmir Valley. And so it is likely that, some terrorists from there have come into this area. And the third reason, I think, is maybe, and I don't know the exact ground situation, but it's likely that these terrorists who are there are getting some local support. The Army Commander, Northern Command, has recently said that there are about 20-25 terrorists operating in this area. We, till about 7-8 years back, really didn't have any resident terrorists, as we call them, in this area. And the reason for that was because there was no local support. So maybe they are now getting a little more local support. And we could discuss each of these issues. But I think these are 3-4 things that have happened that have led to an increase of terrorism in this area.
So you just mentioned the presence of about 25 militants in the area. And the army has said this, I think, officially. So it means that they, as you said, that they've been staying there for a long time. They're also well-trained. They seem to be fully armed. They have enough stocks of ammunition. So who are these militants? Are they from across the border? Is that what this is suggesting?
Yeah. So the way these people are carrying out, actions, and particularly the sophistication with which they are carrying out these ambushes on patrols, on army vehicles and convoys, it does suggest that they're likely to be, foreign-trained terrorists. Now, whether all of them stay in this area, or some of them come from the Kashmir Valley, cross the Pir Panjal range, and then carry out the attacks and go back. Right now, I don't think we have great clarity, except what, of course, the Army Commander has said. But there is also a likelihood, Nirupama, these people come from the Kashmir Valley, carry
Right.
out these attacks, and then return. That likelihood is also there. We can't rule it out.
So wherever they are from, I mean, whether they are from Kashmir or whether they infiltrated from the Jammu region, there has been some infiltration. But what we hear from the authorities is that the infiltration levels are low, or that infiltration attempts have been thwarted. Uh, so how are these infiltrations actually happening? And when have they happened?
So, Nirupama, we don't know when they've happened. So, infiltration attempts are being made. So, that the army has said, and that they have thwarted some of these infiltration attempts. It is not possible, Nirupama, to say that there is zero infiltration. Because if you thwart, say, 5 attempts, it's likely that, some people are able to get through.
Mhm.
I would look at where the infiltration is happening. It's more likely to happen from Kashmir,
Mhm.
and there are just geographical reasons for it. In the Jammu region, the fence is much stronger. So what happens in the Kashmir region is that in the winters,
Mhm.
the fence goes down because of the snow, and then it takes about 4-5 months to repair it. And
Right.
so there is a time when it's easier for terrorists to infiltrate because the fence is under repair. This doesn't happen in the Jammu region because
Mhm.
there is no snow. The terrain is easier. So,
Mhm.
in all likelihood, if you look at infiltration patterns in the past, most of the infiltration happens from the Kashmir region. I'm not saying absolutely nothing happens from Jammu, but if you look at the pattern, more infiltration is from the Kashmir region. So, just based on that, I would say the likelihood of where the infiltration is happening from is most likely from Kashmir.
Right. I'm just trying to understand this as well. There's a ceasefire right now, and it is holding so far quite well. It's been there since February 2021. Isn't it easier to prevent infiltrations when there is a ceasefire? I mean, that seems to have been the common wisdom, that when there's firing across the LOCs, when the maximum infiltrations have taken place under cover of that fire. And right now it's quite peaceful. So shouldn't there be, shouldn't it be easier to stop them right now?
So, Nirmal, what you're saying, traditional wisdom is that, of course, if there is no firing happening,
Yeah.
then the troops who are deployed close to the line of control, troops who are deployed on the fence, can operate, with much greater safety, and so that does help in preventing infiltration. But as I said, if you look at the terrain,
Yeah.
practically, it's not really possible to say that let's achieve absolutely zero infiltration. And the numbers, if you see, so if you're talking about 20-25 terrorists, I mean that numbers have always sort of the ability to, for so many people to come in is always there. So I
Right.
wouldn't completely rule out infiltration,
Right.
despite the ceasefire.
Right. You also mentioned something very interesting, which is that some years ago, and I think you know this better than anybody else because you were involved in that operation as well, that some years ago, the local people actually helped you defeat uh, terrorism in that area, in the Rajouri-Poonch area. And you just said that the presence of these terrorists for sort of an extended period of time in that area suggests that the local Gujar community may be somehow involved in helping them or assisting them. What has changed? Why has this changed?
So Nirupama, you are right that the local Gujar Bakarwal community has been of great support to the army
Mhm.
in fighting back against terrorism, and a number of operations, Hill Kaka, etc. They directly supported. If you recall, the first Muslim Village Defense Committee was set up in this area, in the area of Mara Kulali. The first all women's Muslim VDC was set up in this area because the locals did sort of fight back against terrorism in this area. You mentioned that I also commanded this the Jammu Corps, and we used to always sort of discuss amongst ourselves as to why there are no local militants in this area, resident terrorists in this area. And one reason was because the local communities were not in favor of, these terrorists. Has something changed? Perhaps, Nirupama, we need to look at it. I mean, we know that there has been, some agitation among the local Gujar Bakarwal community against things like reservations to Pahadis. Has that had an impact? Has the connect with the locals sort of weakened? Sometimes, when nothing is happening, everything is calm and quiet. So these are things I think that both, the local government and the local army units that are there in this area need to look at and see if there has been a sort of weakening of, our connect with the local population that then needs to be further strengthened.
Right. So that's a little troubling, right? I mean, if there is no connect with the local people, I think one of the key elements in any counter terrorist operation is that you have the people on your side. And if that is lost, that is or that is not working as well as it used to in the past, then it is of some concern then.
It is, Nirupama. So I won't say the connect is completely sort of lost. But I'm saying if you are seeing some trends towards the fact that local support to terrorist activities, militant activities is growing, then it's something that we need to introspect about, look at, see how we can reestablish and strengthen this contact. I won't go as far as saying that the connect is completely lost, because I know units which are there locally do reach out. A lot of help is given to the Bakarwal communities during their migration period, and that continues. But as I said, if we are finding greater local support, and if there are 20-25 terrorists who are able to stay in this area, then it's something that we need to sort of look at and see how we can reestablish a better connect.
So it's not just support to the militants that is of concern, possibly, but also the fact that intelligence seems to have dried up about the activities of militants. Otherwise, there wouldn't be these ambushes with the regularity that they've been taking place, isn't it? Or am I wrong in assuming that?
No. So intelligence, also, how intelligence flows in. So we talk about technical intelligence and human intelligence. Human intelligence, of course, comes from the local population. And if that is not coming in, again, as I said, that's something that we need to look at. As far as technical intelligence is concerned, again, there are new and novel methods that are being used for passing messages. Earlier, it used to be, okay, somebody is communicating on radio, and so something that you could intercept and pick up. But it's becoming sort of more and more difficult. And if you have small groups sort of operating in this area, that becomes difficult to pick up. But certainly we need to have better intelligence. I mean, most of the actions that you are seeing that have happened where army has lost soldiers is where we have got ambushed.
Right. So, let me come to the other aspect of this, which is, they've happened so often now. 5 such incidents this year. And there was one major long drawn out encounter, if you can call it that, in October 2021. What has the army learned from each of these incidents that, that they can prevent it from happening? Because to me, it suggests that lessons are not, I'm a layperson, so I'm just looking at it from the outside. And it seems to me that the army is not learning lessons from its experience of previous ambushes.
So Nirupama, I'm also looking at it today from outside. So really, and sometimes you have this concern that why is it similar incidents are getting repeated? I'm sure the army is learning its lessons. We do from each incident that happens, uh, but uh, there is a need to sort of review and revise your protocols and your drills. I mean, if vehicles are moving on roads, there are road opening parties, and those road
Right.
opening parties are meant clearly to prevent incidents like this from happening and ambushes like this from happening. So I think the army needs to also go back to the drawing board, review its procedures, protocols, and strengthen them to ensure that these kind of incidents are not happening. I wouldn't say they're not learning the lessons. I'm just saying, uh, as tactics change, as militants do things the way they do it, I think we need to start reacting and prevent these things from happening.
So it's the way that some of these ambushes have taken place seems to indicate that the tactical responses are not up to the uh, standard that that they should be, perhaps. Or am I going a bit too far in saying that?
I don't know. Each situation is different. How people react and what happens. So let's say in an ambush, in the initial burst of fire, you lose 4 soldiers if there are only 9, 10 of them.
Right.
The reactions would be different if you don't lose too many lives in the first volley of fire. Maybe the reaction would be different. So I wouldn't sort of say that tactical responses on the ground are weak or poor. Just depends on what kind of incident takes place.
Right.
I
And
think
you
the larger issue is the SOPs and protocols that you put in place on one, preventing these incidents, and then if these incidents happen, the reaction that is supposed to take place, because you can't prevent any incident from happening. You can't say there'll be zero incidents. It's just how you react to it, how you can avoid it. Those are the larger sort of protocols that I think the army should look at, review, and relook.
You mentioned right at the beginning that there had been a thinning out on the ground because of deployment in Ladakh along the line of actual control to handle the Chinese threat. So to what extent has that thinning actually affected the response of the army to this emerging new situation in this area?
So what we know, Nirupama, is that one of the force headquarters, which is like a division equivalent, and some troops were pulled out from the Jammu area and sent to Eastern Ladakh. I'm told after these incidents have happened, now some additional troops from our reserves have got pushed into the area. But obviously, that period between the pulling out of PRR forces and now the additional induction of troops, I think this gap has been taken advantage of by terrorists. Obviously, if you're going to pull out some troops, you are going to thin out. So your ability to dominate the area, to patrol the area, even to reach out, meet local population, talk to them, get information, all that does get diluted to a certain extent when troops get pulled out. And which is one thing, we always seem to think that where numbers of terrorists killed, etc., are reduced, then there is a scope that you can pull out forces from that area. But I think this is an example of saying that if you do pull out forces, it also weakens your, as I said, ability to dominate the area. It weakens your intelligence grid, and so this void is therefore filled up by terrorists who can come in and operate with a degree of impunity.
This incident has taken place very soon after the Supreme Court pronounced its verdict on the abrogation of Article 370. Should we see a connection?
I don't think I don't think we should see a connection. Look, the terrorists are out to cause casualties on the security forces, and they will see an opportunity and target as per that opportunity. Linking it to the Supreme Court decision, or to say that it was the Supreme Court decision which triggered this incident, I think would not be correct.
Pakistan, which is in so much internal turmoil, there is this economic meltdown, and there is political uncertainty. Elections will come up, and the army is fighting battles within. With all this information, that there are so many terrorists waiting to at launch pads across the LOC, waiting to enter. So, how do you see Pakistan's own plans to disrupt what's happening in Jammu and Kashmir, the security situation in Jammu and Kashmir?
So, Nirupama, people often say, look, Pakistan is tied up in its own, and you brought out multiple crises at the same time, and so how would it impact Kashmir? But if you look at the past, I mean, look at the post-Lal Masjid period, when they were actually facing a much larger sort of threat from terrorists during that period. I mean, they have never stopped trying to send terrorists into Jammu and Kashmir. You can say that the level might vary. They might put some checks, but they have never completely, despite their own issues, internal problems. Kashmir has always remained, sort of central to their thinking that we must keep the problem alive in Jammu and Kashmir. We can't just let it go down and that everything is over. So they will continue to do this, and I think we need to expect that this is going to happen. So as I said, I think the army needs to just sort of revise its standard operating procedures on how it is operating in this area. The intelligence agencies, including the civil intelligence agencies, need to sort of gear up so that we're getting better information and intelligence about, are these people residing, where are they residing, are they coming from the Kashmir Valley? Because if that is the case, then your deployments along the Pir Panjal have to be strengthened. So we are always focused on deployments along the LAC along the line of control to ensure there is no infiltration.
And
but
this is a tough area by itself, right? I mean, the Pir Panjal region is a very tough terrain by itself.
It is. But if the case is that terrorists from Kashmir are coming over the Pir Panjal, crossing over, and then coming and carrying out operations and going back, then we now need to look at strengthening our deployment along the Pir Panjal also, to make sure that there is no movement between the two regions. The outreach has to be there, at all levels, starting from government to the local army units, the local company commanders, and outreach, the strengthened outreach, I would say, to the local communities, so that intelligence flows in, so that local support dries up. If local support dries up, there is no way that these people can survive or stay in this area and carry out actions like this. So I think at multiple levels we have to approach it. Look at your deployments. I know some additional troops have gone in. If there is a requirement temporarily to push in more troops, then I think we should do that, so that at least you are able to, once you get a check and domination over the area and these people are not able to operate, it's also, if you look at numbers killed, and you're seeing sometimes more soldiers killed than terrorists killed. So obviously this ratio is not acceptable, so that will have to be reversed. And if you need to temporarily push in additional troops, then we should do that. See, what happens also is, and which is often not realized, that the presence of troops gives a sense of security to the local population. So if there is a company operating base in some area, then the villages which are in the vicinity of that get a sense of security. If this absence is there, and terrorists are moving around in that area, locals are often scared to give out information because they feel, look, who will protect us? So just the presence of troops gives this added sense of security to the villagers, and you could probably see more information coming in. You're meeting them, talking to them, You are sort of living within themselves. So the additional troops have a lot of advantages that come in with just the mere presence of army units.
Thank you so much, General Hooda, for your time. Thank you for being part of India Standard Time. Thank you, viewers, for watching this program. If you like it, please press the subscribe button and follow us as well on awazsouthasia.com. Thank you.